Hey, Foundry Groups, it is good to be with you guys again today. We are continuing in our series on Jesus and looking through the Gospels and the questions Jesus asked and the questions Jesus didn't ask and the responses he had and the responses he didn't have. This has been such a rich series to really see the words that come from Jesus. And this week we looked over the weekend at the story of the boy who Jesus healed. Because he was demon-possessed. And one of the questions we see come up in this instantly is, how long has he been like this? We see Jesus ask this boy's father, how long has he been like this? And what I hope you heard over the course of this weekend is that should be a question that we're asking. How long have we been doing something? How long has this demon-possessed boy been dealing with this? What comes from this? How long has this been around, and what do we need to do coming out of this? And I hope through the course of this week's teaching, you can get an understanding that being vigilant may not be easy, but it's vital. Not dealing with it forever, like not avoiding something that you should be dealing with. It may be hard, but it is vital for what happens in our relationship with Christ. So today, before we jump into some groups content, I've got a pretty fun icebreaker question for you. And this is, we're going to actually have you guys take out a piece of paper and everyone grab a pen. And what you're going to do is you're going to write a few sentences about the Super Bowl. Now, don't tell anyone around the room what you're going to write yet, okay? So say nothing, even if you didn't get a chance to watch the Super Bowl, unless you're hiding under a rock, you know something about what happened, right? You may know who won, you may know who didn't win, right? Even if you didn't watch it, write 2 to 3 sentences about what you know about this year's Super Bowl. And then we'll respond with some activities out of that. All right, for this next part, I want everyone to read their 2 to 3 sentences out loud for each other. Did you guys use many of the same words? Maybe you understood that this one team won, and that was a non-negotiable, right? That for sure happened. What was the biggest difference that you saw in everyone's sentences about this same event? What I love about this little illustration is that in the Super Bowl, it is one event, and yet we can have so many different ways we viewed it, right? There can be different ways we watched it, whether it was on a couch, or maybe there were a lot of people talking around, so we didn't catch all the little details, or maybe we were knuckles deep into a cheese dip and we were too busy chewing to hear what's going on in the Super Bowl, right? In a similar way, even though we're all talking about the same event, there can be different versions of it in a way, even though the event is unchanging. In the same way, when we look at the stories of Jesus in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they are all different perspectives of the same story. And today we're going to have one of those illustrations that a few weeks ago we looked at this story in Luke, and today we are going to go through it in the book of Mark. And I think you may see some similarities, you may see some differences in it, but understand that these stories are not competing against each other. They're joining together to tell a beautiful story from a different perspective. So let's start out in Mark 9, 14 to 29. Read that as a group, and then we'll continue. What similarities do you notice? What about the differences? Why do you think this is? In reading today's passage in Mark, we see that there is a lot of commotion when Jesus and his disciples go to the people. Picture this scene. How does Jesus respond? You can picture this scene. The people are all arguing. And what do you think the emotions of the disciples were? What about the boy's father, the crowd, or the Pharisees? All these people around. What do you think their emotions are? This question is fascinating to me. Do you think that everyone in there, in that space, all the commotion, everyone in there cared about the boy, right? Or were there other emotions charged because of different reasons or different perspectives? Jesus asks what the problem is. What are they arguing about? In fact, in the message, Eric said that it is important to name the actual problem in our minds and in prayer when we are caught up in emotions. How could this help you? Next, we find Jesus ask, how long has he been like this? Why do you think Jesus asked that? Do you think evil can take a bigger hold or have a stronger root, so to say, when it has been presented for a longer time in our lives? Why or why not? When does a sinful choice become a habit, or even maybe the next step of an addiction? How does addiction feel like being in bondage? For you parents out there, if you're not a parent, just skip over this one. But for you parents out there, what responsibilities do you have in regards to what your kids listen to and watch? Eric said being vigilant may not be easy, but it is vital. Have you found any helpful ways to guard them? Now let's take this on the personal level. How do you guard your heart and your mind? The father of the boy who was demon-possessed used a very interesting word when he asked Jesus for help. What did he say? How does Jesus respond to that question? And how did the man respond? I find this super fascinating in this. It's that acknowledgement that we can't do it is the very beginning of faith. And knowing that, have you ever had a time in your life or your faith that felt small that you had to ask God to help you believe? Tell us about that moment. Are there any areas in your life right now where you are desperate for God to step in? How can we pray for you today? All right, groups, if you've got time after going through a word of prayer with everyone, feel free to jump into the Digging Deeper section. We take a look at a story when Jesus sends out the 12 disciples. We actually look at two passages about that and what power they were given. Because we see in this story that we read today, Jesus casts out a demon. And do the disciples now carry that power on? We're going to read about that. If you've got time, check that out in Digging Deeper. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great week.